The 20s are finally here. This decade is big on women's rights, and they are finally able to be heir. Because Louis doesn't know differently, Lillian is the next heir. The rules state that all forms of lighting are now allowed, so I finally got rid of the ugly candle chandeliers. The 20s also bring the prohibition, so no more alcohol for Louis. Because Lillian is the heir, I have moved her out of the crowded girls' room and into Henry's old room. Wind turbines are available, and also a Pride vacuums, but I don't have that kit. To kick off the decade, we have many birthdays to celebrate. Josiah has aged into a teenager, and the twins Marcy and Etheline have aged into children. Mac over time. Josiah is basically identical to his father. It's kind of scary. I even put Charles' hair on him, and they are basically the same sim. Marcy and Etheline are almost identical, but I am still going to dress them the same until I get a feel for their personalities. The Dabney farm got a major expansion for the 1920s. The farm and animal pens are still the same for now. Lillian and Josiah have their own bedrooms now. Lillian took over the master and has her own bathroom. Harrison and Isaiah are sharing the boys' room with their own bathroom as well. The twins share the much smaller girls' room, because I wanted to keep all the children upstairs for now. The kitchen and dining area got an update, and there is a lot more space for family time and for guests. Alice has moved downstairs to one of the new bedrooms. There is a spare bedroom, and I think it will turn into an office space later on or a place for Alice to knit in peace. Recently, during recess at school, Isaiah had been approached by a woman. She had a familiar sense about her, but he could not recall meeting her before. The woman was very friendly, and she started to show up at the school more often. Eventually, she revealed herself to be his mother, Jacqueline. Isaiah did not know much about her at all. The subject of his mother had always been avoided at home. Alice had always treated him like family, but Louis and Lillian ignored him. When he met Jacqueline, she looked and felt like family. From the day he met Louis had hated him. But Jacqueline, she seemed to care. She got him to meet with her at a bakery. She reassured him that she was working on a plan, and she would reunite their family soon as long as he promised to keep their secret. All he ever wanted was family, so he agreed. Alice's birthday is approaching, so Josiah decided to do something kind for all of the girls of the family. He encouraged them to all put on nice outfits and get ready, because he had a treat for them. The house was full of excitement as the girls all ran around getting ready. Alice hadn't gotten dressed up in many years, so she just couldn't hold back the excitement she felt. Marcy may have put on a bit too much makeup, but she's still super cute. The surprise was tickets to the theater, and the family had a lot of fun. No one more than Marcy, though. She watched in awe, completely taken by the atmosphere. As soon as they returned home, she declared that one day she'd be a star. Harrison is a complete ladies' man. He is a charmer at heart and can charm almost anyone. Definitely a heartbreaker. Josiah and Edward are still best friends. Edward's younger sister gets along great with Harrison, so they always have an excuse to see each other. In school, their friendship was not encouraged. A couple of schoolboys made some comments on how close they were. So Josiah set Edward up with a local girl. Even though it was his idea, Josiah still felt a twinge of jealousy as he had to share time with his best friend with someone else. Lillian snuck out again late at night to meet up with a boy from school she had a big crush on. He brought her to a flower shop, and she was weary at first because it didn't seem like much. However, it was a flower shop with a secret. Hidden underneath was a speakeasy where there was music and alcohol. She was so excited, but her excitement was quickly dimmed at the sight of her drunken father smoking a cigarette and drinking across the room. In a normal scenario, Lillian would not think twice. But Louis had promised Alice that he had stopped drinking. His drinking made him angry, and Alice didn't want that around the children. Lillian was not one to back down, so she confronted him. Louis was wasted, and her nagging was not something he cared to listen to, so he brushed her off. Lillian desperately tried to reason with him, but he just didn't seem to care. Gregory, the boy she was with, could tell she was upset, so the two got out of there. They walked down the street to the local chapel. It was late, so most things were closed. Lillian wasn't ready for the evening to end yet. She had yet to have any fun. She convinced him to sneak into the chapel with her, and he reluctantly agreed. She really liked him, and the way he pulled her away from her father and made her feel better only made her like him more. She tried to make a move, wanting him to see that it was okay to kiss her. But he rejected her advances, leaving her feeling very insecure in herself. She had never been rejected by a boy before, and it wasn't a feeling she liked. In a hurry, she left the chapel and went home feeling deflated. Now that all of the children were in school, Alice spent most of her time alone on the farm. It was very lonely, but when the children got home, her heart was full once more. It was her birthday, but the celebration was short as she received word that her mother had passed away. Etheline wanted to cheer Alice up, so she let her teach her to knit. Alice was just happy for the quality time, and it reminded her of a time when her own mother had taught her. Ever since his run-in with Lillian, Louis had been spending more and more time away from the house. He felt suffocated by the memories in there, and without his parents and brother there, it didn't feel like home. He had grown to enjoy the company of the people in the speakeasies. They always had interesting stories to tell. While wasted and flirting with a woman on the dance floor, his attention was entranced by a familiar face. Even with age and a drunken mind, Jacqueline was still the most beautiful woman he had ever laid eyes on. Jacqueline could tell that he was drunk, and most likely not thinking straight, but she saw it as a way in. Louis had been hurt by her time and time again, but each time he saw her, it was like he fell in love all over. There was something about the way she spoke, or maybe it was her confidence, but he couldn't let her go. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was just his heart speaking louder than his head, but either way, Louis found himself falling right back into her trap. The next morning, Alice woke to an unwanted house guest who sat her down for a chat. Listen, Alice, I've never had an issue with you. You've always been kind to me, and you took care of my children when more important things led me away. However, it's about time my family comes back together. You see, Louis is my husband, and this house rightfully belongs to him. It's been great having you. Really. But we think you should leave. and your children too. She placed a hand on her stomach. We need to make room, in case we want to expand our family. I'm sure you understand. Hey, you can even leave the older one. He'll have to leave school, of course. We need someone to take care of the land and animals. If he's anything like his grandfather, I'm sure he'll have more use than just farm work. Alice kept her calm during the talk, trying not to let her emotions show too much as she listened. She couldn't believe what Jacqueline was saying. To clear her head, she went to a place that once brought her joy, the park where Charles had proposed. An older man noticed Alice sitting alone and went up to her to introduce himself. Alice was weary at first, but she found him quite attractive and she really needed the company. He made her laugh and smile, and it was a nice refresher. His name was Jefferson Stewart, and he works as a professor. They both loved animals, and he also lost someone he considered his soulmate. They told each other stories of their partners, and connected over their pain. It was oddly comforting, finally having someone she felt who would understand her. She returned home happy, and with a determination to save her family from the tornado that was Jacqueline. She brought out boxes of Eleanor and James' old items, trying to dig through them for any sort of will or paper that could help her claim on the farm. What she came across was something completely different, and a lot more shocking. Alice held in her hand the letter that James had written to Jacqueline declaring his love and revealing their affair. All of the pieces clicked in Alice's head, and she was only left with one option: blackmail. There was little time before the children returned home, so Alice called Jacqueline in and took control of the conversation. So, I took what you said into consideration. I truly believe you deserve happiness. Everyone does. The thing is, I didn't just take care of your children while you were away. I raised them. Henry, Lillian, and Isaiah. They are my children. When Henry passed, I mourned him as a son. Your claim to them is biological, but you are not their mother. Jacqueline. Henry was so smart. He could have been and done so many things. But you took his chance away when you stole the money we needed to send him to school. He fell in love with a girl. Did you know that? He planned to marry her and help her raise her siblings. And Lillian. She's beautiful, and she knows it. But more than that, she is passionate and so talented. She loves music and art. Did you know she plays violin? Or that she is amazing at it? And little Isaiah. He has a heart of gold. He's kind and he's thoughtful. He would give the shirt off his back to a stranger to make sure they didn't go cold. But he's sad. I know he is. He doesn't feel like he has a place in the world, and you did that to him. You made him feel unwanted, and I have been picking up the pieces ever since you left him on our doorstep. Louis. He's damaged. He's mean and he's selfish, but he deserves better than you. I found the letter. I know that you had an affair with James. And I know that Lillian is most likely not Louis. So you need to go. You don't belong here. This is not your family. It's mine. Her words were cut short as a hungover Louis came around the corner, hurt, anger, and confusion on his face. Thank God you're here, Louis. Can you believe this woman? She's unbelievable. Alice handed him the letter, without a word, not acknowledging Jacqueline even as she began to plead. Louis walked up to her, only being able to muster the words get out through his rage. By the time Jacqueline was gone, the children were home, and Alice had to explain to them that Jacqueline had left again. Isaiah did not take it well and took his hurt out on Alice in the only way he knew how. His mother had abandoned him again, and his heart was broken. He had put so much faith into her. She promised him they'd be a happy family again. Why didn't she want him? Why didn't she love him? What was wrong with him? Louis was left with the realization that he had no family, no hope. He lost his career, his fame, his wife, his son, and now his daughter. The farm was his father's dream, not his. He had kept up the farm in memory of a man who had never shown him an ounce of kindness. If it weren't for Alice, he'd have burned down the one thing his father had cared for to the ground. Instead, he left. The farm has a new member. His name is Arthur Sullivan, and Alice hired him to run the farm so she could have spare time to herself. He's staying in the spare bedroom. He's younger than her, but they get along very well. He has proven to be very friendly and trustworthy, so Alice has little complaints. With all of her free time, Alice is finally able to invite the women over from her knitting club. The group is much smaller from when she first started it, but Alice still loves the company of women who share similar interests. She even made a friend in a widow named Dorothea. Josiah has been holding onto a secret for a long time, and his lingering feelings have become too much of a burden. He's desperately in love with his best friend. He always had been. Even as children, he knew his feelings ran deeper than just best friends. He was scared then, and even more scared now. Unable to keep up the act anymore, he makes his move and reveals his feelings for Edward. Edward was taken aback, but knew that he felt the same. They knew that it would not be easy to act on their feelings, so they agreed to keep things a secret for now. Neither of them were in a hurry. They just wanted to be together. Lillian had been keeping a secret of her own. She had been sneaking off to see a much older man for weeks. You may remember him as Noah Smith, the only son of Louis' former rival, the governor. The governor has long since passed away, but his son has taken over his estate and followed his father's pursuit in the political career. The only thing he was missing was a beautiful doting wife, and Noah thought that Lillian was just the right fit. Luckily for him, Lillian couldn't possibly think of a better way to get back at Louis. Alice wanted a big celebration for Thanksgiving. Her children were all growing up, and she wanted to make sure they remained close after all they had been through together. Lillian had remained close with Dorothy even after her brother's death. She was one of her closest friends, and her siblings felt like family. So Dorothy, Edward, and Helen were all invited to spend the holiday with them. Josiah and Edward managed to find time to sneak away, of course. The day was full of laughter, love, and family bonding time. It was the perfect day in Alice's eyes, and she was so happy that her family was still together after all this time. After dinner, Lillian brought Noah in to introduce him to Alice. Alice was surprised by their engagement, but she trusted Lillian's judgment, and she only wanted her happiness. It was a difficult situation for Alice, as Lillian felt like a daughter to her. She was worried for her, but didn't want to overstep. Lillian and Noah walked around the neighborhood, and she gave him a tour of where she grew up. She really did enjoy his company. Her motives for the engagement weren't entirely innocent, but Noah truly made her feel loved. He was the only boy she had ever saw a real future with. She thought she may actually be falling for him. As a friendly gesture, Jefferson offered to take Alice and the children to the beach to give her some much-needed relaxation time and also meet the children she was constantly telling him about. Alice was thrilled at the idea and prepared a lovely picnic so they could also celebrate Lillian's birthday. Lillian brought along her fiancé, and the entire family got to meet him as well. Everyone had an amazing time, and even though they weren't used to being away from the farm, it was a nice change of scenery. Lillian is finally a young adult and gained the perfectionist trait. After the beach, Lillian went home with Noah to meet the in-laws. She wasn't quite sure what to expect, but was pleasantly surprised by how friendly his sisters were. His mother, on the other hand, was not happy to meet her. She did not like the way they had hid their relationship from them, and she did not approve of Lillian as a person either. She made it very clear that she was not going to give her blessing. And finally, when Lillian returned home, Arthur waited up with news that a lawyer had stopped by with papers for Lillian from Lewis. Lewis had caught word of the engagement and completely cut Lillian out of his will. In the paperwork, she would be disowned as his daughter and he would leave everything to Isaiah after his passing. Lillian thought that she would have some type of negative emotion after getting the news. Maybe sad or even some anger. But in reality, she felt relief. In his punishment, Lewis had given Lillian the greatest gift: her freedom. She would be free of the curse of the Dabney name soon. She was ready to start a new life, one that she could create completely on her own, as Lillian Harlow Smith.